Hey guys, Adam back with you, and today we're working in the kitchen where we just received some new appliances. And today we're actually going to work on getting the dishwasher installed, and I'm going to take you along and show you how we do that. So today I'm going to take you through the steps of installing a dishwasher. A dishwasher installation isn't a terribly difficult task, but it does involve a couple different steps. We need to deal with electrical, providing power supply. We also need to deal with plumbing. Providing a plumbing supply line to the dishwasher, as well as a drain coming back to the kitchen sink. So it's not a real difficult project, but it's one that I think after you watch me complete it, you'll be more confident in tackling it on your own. So when you receive your dishwasher, it's going to come in a box like this, and this is pretty obvious, but just follow the instructions here. It shows you to cut along the dotted line on the bottom. That way when you cut through the box, you'll make sure that you don't cut anything or scratch anything, any of the surfaces on the dishwasher. So we'll just take a sharp utility knife and we'll score this line all the way around. And once you score that line, you should just be able to pop the top off the box. So one thing you will need for the installation of your dishwasher is a supply line. If you're just replacing and you have an existing supply line, you should be able to use that. In this case, this is a new installation, so we're going with a new supply line. We'll go ahead and get this opened up. Now, depending on the brand of dishwasher, many of them will actually require this 90-degree elbow to be attached to the dishwasher. And this is a Frigidaire. This does require this elbow. So basically the way this will work, and I'll show you, is this elbow will get attached to the bottom of the dishwasher, and the supply line gets attached to the elbow, and then it goes through the cabinet and it gets attached to the supply line under the sink. So let's take a look at how that works. So to get started, what we're going to do is take a Phillips screwdriver and we're going to remove this little cover plate from the bottom front of the dishwasher. This is basically just a trim plate that covers the bottom when everything is complete. So we'll set this aside. Make sure you don't lose your screws, and then also pay attention to the orientation of the actual cover. My advice is when you remove it from the dishwasher, just kind of keep your pieces together and set them aside like this. That way you won't, after the fact, try to remember which way everything goes back together. So keep those oriented. Make sure you hold on to your screws. If you want, it's always a good idea just to put your screws back into the holes that they came out of. That way you know that you won't lose them. Now at this point, I find it's easiest to actually tip the refrigerator on its back. We want to access the plumbing supply, and it's much easier to do it from this position rather than laying on the floor and having to basically stand on your head to get to everything. Okay, so I'm going to give you a close-up look of the supply on this, and this is where I was telling you on the bottom of the refrigerator. It's basically like a male garden hose is I think really actually the size of that, but that's where this 90-degree connector comes into play. So what we're going to do is actually attach that to the bottom of the dishwasher, and we're just going to have it so that the connector faces toward the back. And actually, even to make things just a little bit easier, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to attach my supply line to the connector, and then we'll attach the connector to the dishwasher.
Okay, make sure that's good and snug. Now we're going to attach to the bottom of the dishwasher. Now, one thing to note, this is just plastic here, so you need this to be snug. Obviously, you don't want to have any leaks, but it is plastic, so keep that in mind. You don't want to over tighten anything. I'll use my channel lock or slip joint pliers. And we'll go ahead and snug this down. All right, now that's tight enough. Now we're going to look at the electrical supply. When it comes to electrical connection for a dishwasher, there's two different methods that you're probably going to find. In this particular case, there is an outlet back underneath the dishwasher, in the back of the dishwasher cavity. So in that case, what we're going to do is actually use a supply cord. And this is just a basic cord that we picked up from the home improvement store. This is a 6-foot cord. The other way that's actually more common, that I see more often, is that there will just be, instead of an outlet back there, there's actually just going to be a power cord, or basically just a piece of Romex that'll be coming out of the wall, and that'll be direct wired into the dishwasher. So in this case, I'm going to show you how to do this connection with a power cord. It would be the same way if we had a piece of just Romex coming out of the wall, but we would, instead of installing the power cord to the installation, or to the supply lines, to the supply leads of the dishwasher, we would just directly connect the Romex. In that case, if you do have a direct line, make sure that you have the power turned off. Always, anytime you're dealing with electrical, make sure that you've got the power turned off, the breaker to that particular circuit. So to get started here, what we're going to do is we need to remove the cover of the electrical box here. And on these, this is actually a Torx bit. This is a T20 bit, and they have this kind of tucked back behind the door, so it's a little bit difficult to get to. But what I'm going to do is actually open the door of the dishwasher. Gonna prop the door open here. Get that screw loose, and again, make sure you set this aside so that you don't lose it. And then this electrical cover just sort of tips out of there like that. So here are your positive and neutral power lines that actually provide power to the dishwasher. Now what we're going to end up doing here, so again, we're using a power cord. So this power cord is going to come through the hole in the back of this electrical box, and then we're going to make our connections with the positive and neutral there. Now anytime that you have electrical wire coming through an opening like this, it's a sharp metal, you always want to make sure you have a little insulating connector like this. So what I'm going to do, and you can pick these up at any hardware store, any home improvement store, and basically all it is, there are 2 Phillips screws on here. And back those out a little bit. And the way this works is that your wires will come through there. And then you can go ahead and tighten these screws back down. And when you tighten these screws down, what's happening is this back is actually sliding, and it's tightening, it's clamping down. So that'll hold this wire tightly in there and prevent any risk of having it rub through the insulation, you know, over many years and many cycles of the dishwasher, and make sure you don't end up having any kind of an electrical short or anything. So I'm just going to screw these down tight. Okay, so now we've got a firm connection that's stuck in the back of that insulator. So now this has a nut on it. We're going to take that nut off. We're going to slip this in through the back of the hole. And then I'm going to replace the nut. And we'll just snug that up. And then just take a screwdriver, pliers, whatever, and you can just kind of take that and press on that nut to tighten that up. So there, now we have a nice, good, tight connection in there, and we can continue with hooking up the power. So the first step that we're going to do as far as actually hooking up the wires is we're going to take the ground, the green ground from our power cord, and we're going to attach that to the grounding screw on the dishwasher. And anytime that you're doing wiring, you want to wrap the wire around clockwise. That will make sure that that'll make sure that when you actually turn the screw in, the screw will tighten down on the wire, and it won't cause the wire to actually pull up or to back itself off as you're pulling down, if that makes sense. Probably not a very good explanation, but just trust me. Put the wire around clockwise, and then we'll stay on. And these are a little tight because this is a self-tapping screw, and you're actually threading this in. So it will feel very tight, but that's okay. That's how they are supposed to be. Okay. Now we've got the ground connected. Now we'll go ahead and go to the positive and neutral. And I've got a couple wire nuts here. So we'll do our neutral wire first. And I'm gonna take a wire stripper and I'm gonna get just a little bit more wire. This is on the dishwasher side. And then actually on the power cord, that's a bit much. I like to have, I'm gonna say probably about half, a little more than half an inch, maybe close to 3/4 of an inch of wire, probably more like 3/4 showing. So that's about 3/4. That's pretty long. That's over an inch there. So I'm gonna trim that down just a little bit. So now you can see those are about the same length. Just take your fingers and wrap those together, and then take a wire nut. And put that on good and snug, and that'll make sure that those wires don't come apart. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the positive side. I'm going to strip a little bit more so we get about 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to take a little bit off the off the power cord. That's a bit excessive what they provide. Same thing, we're going to wrap those two wires together. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit more off of here. It's still a little long. Ideally, you'd like to have when you're splicing two wires together like this, you want to have them be approximately the same length. So that looks good. Wire nut. All right, nice and tight. Now, we've got our power cord attached. So now we're going to go back. We're going to take our cover that was originally on the dishwasher. I'm going to pull some of this excess back out of there that just will get in the way. We'll slip this cover back on. So we'll slip this cover back on. Make sure your wires are tucked in there. Make sure your hole's lined up. And then we'll take our screw. Now it looks like I can just barely get it without having to open the door. So we'll go ahead and leave the door open this time. Or I mean, leave the door closed this time. So there we go. Now we've got our box firmly attached. Our wires are connected. Now, once we get the dishwasher in the hole, all we have to do is actually plug the power cord into the outlet in the back of the wall. Now, depending on your installation, this next step may or may not be required. This is a new kitchen that we installed with new cabinets, so I need to drill a hole in the cabinet for the supply line, and then up toward the top of the cabinet we'll also drill a hole for the drain line. If you're doing a replacement, those holes will already be there and you won't need to worry about this step. So for drilling these holes, you can either use a spade bit, or if you have a hole saw, I like to use a hole saw. Those make a nice clean cut, and but either one will work fine. Okay, so we've got our supply line attached to the dishwasher. We've got our power cord attached to the dishwasher. The next step now is to go ahead and do a test fit in the hole. One thing that I want to point out to you is that on the bottom of the dishwasher, you have adjustable feet, and this will help you get to the correct height adjustment. What we want to do, I'm going to actually tip this up for you now. So on the top of the dishwasher, you'll see there's these two tabs here. And those are mounting tabs that are made for attaching the dishwasher to the bottom of the cabinet. So in our case, you can see that on the bottom of the countertop, there is a metal mounting plate. And these are granite countertops, and so the installer attaches this mounting plate. As you can see, it's attached to the cabinet on either side. And what we're going to do, you see these two screws here. So these two screws are going to be used to mount these tabs to the bottom of the countertop. Now, in this particular case, we've got a solid surface counter, so that's the procedure for mounting. There's a couple of different ways to do this. Now, if you have solid surface countertops similar to these, but you don't have a mounting plate like this, another option is you can actually purchase, first of all, you can purchase a mounting plate like this that will attach to the cabinet. The other option is you can get small tabs that are about probably 3 inches long, and they've got double-sided tape on them, and you can clean the bottom of the counter really well, and you can actually adhere those to the bottom of the counter, and then the screws can go into those. If you have a wooden top, like a laminate top, then installation is very easy. You don't have to worry about these mounting plates. You'll simply take screws, and the screws will go right through these tabs to the bottom of the countertop. So it kind of depends on the countertop, what type of application that you have, but those are the most common ones you're going to run into. So as a first step, what we're going to do is we're basically going to test fit the dishwasher. We're going to slide it into the hole. What we want is I'm going to remove these screws so those don't get in the way, but we want the dishwasher to be as tight to the top of the countertop as we can, or the bottom of the countertop as we can. We want it to fill that hole nicely. As you can see when you look at these mounting tabs, there's not a lot of room, from the bottom of the tab to the top of the dishwasher. So we want these tabs to fit in pretty much flush with the bottom of that countertop, so it's a nice tight fit. Generally, you'll probably put it in the hole and you'll find that it's too low, and then we'll pull it back out and we'll take those adjustment feet and we'll turn those out so that so the feet actually raise the dishwasher up. So we'll go ahead and do a test fit here and see how it looks. One other thing to note, dishwashers all have some sort of an insulation blanket around the outside. Depending on the dishwasher, basically the more money you spend on a dishwasher, the higher the end dishwasher the more insulation blanket there's going to be, the thicker they get. They'll have insulation will go down in the front, and when you get those with the thicker blankets, it can be you have to kind of wedge them in that hole. It'll hang up, and you have to kind of use your fingers and work it in there. This one has a pretty thin insulation blanket, so it slides in pretty easy, but that's something to be aware of. You may have to kind of work that insulation in as you go. All right, so what I'm seeing here is actually, it looks like we're getting very lucky on this one. This doesn't happen very often, but even with the feet, the lowest position, it's actually a snug fit. So I'll try to show you what I'm looking at here. So we're looking at these tabs in here, and as you can see, we didn't adjust the feet at all of the dishwasher, so we really can't get the dishwasher any lower, but even in this position, these tabs are tight in there. So we're not gonna have any adjustment to make on the feet. Again, a lot of times, and some of this depends on the thickness of the flooring too. This material, this laminate flooring that we put in here is about a 1/2 inch thick. It's pretty thick flooring, so that actually raises the dishwasher up a little bit, but oftentimes you're going to have to make adjustments to those feet to close this gap. Again, in this case, we're pretty lucky. We don't have to make any adjustments, so we can go on with the installation. Okay, so now we're ready to actually put the dishwasher in the hole. What we need to do is make sure that we are feeding the drain line. It needs to go through the top hole in the cabinet. Your supply line that we attach to the bottom is going to need to go through the bottom hole of that cabinet. Just try to place one at a time. Just get them started in the hole, and then the power cord since we know it fits, we're going to go ahead and plug in the power cord now. Now, it's kind of a go in a little bit of a time process here. We want to make sure that our supply line and our discharge tube don't come out of those holes as we wiggle it in. So I'm going to ease the dishwasher into the hole, and then as I do that, you'll see that I'll reach into the cabinet and pull those lines into the sink cabinet. Start it in, I'm going to reach in, I'm going to pull on the supply. I'm going to pull on the drain a little bit. Try to make sure your insulation blanket is laying flat. Go in a little further. And I'm going to pull on my supply. I'm going to pull on my drain. Make sure they're not getting smashed up inside there. Looks good. Go in a little further. Pull a little more. Just keep working it back and forth. Take your time. Make sure you don't have anything right there. We've got the hinge just kind of hitting the side of the cabinet. Kind of make sure that slides in there and doesn't bind. I like to keep coming in, pulling the supply, pulling the drain, and we're in. So at this point, and I forgot to remove the screws from the mounting bracket, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so now at this point, basically what we want to do, we've got the dishwasher so that it's slid in all the way. And again, so you can see I've got a little bit of my insulation blanket sticking out. We're going to pull this back out a little bit, adjust that, and make sure that's tucked in. Sometimes even maybe screwdriver or something to help kind of stick that back in there. So basically our goal here is just to make sure that we have it centered in the cavity well, from left to right. Make sure it's fully in, so it's not, so one corner is not out more than another. And actually what I've noticed is that now that it's in the hole, you can see that there's actually a wobble there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, and it looks like it's actually leaning down toward this corner. So I am actually going to end up adjusting one of those feet. And to do that, I'll just take a pliers and I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but I'm just gonna take my pliers once you get started, you can probably move it by hand. I don't need to go a long ways, just a little bit. No. We'll do another test fit. And by the way, I will mention, as I was adjusting that, these edges here, the stainless, are sharp. I just barely rubbed that and cut my hand, so be careful on those edges. It's not a mortal wound or anything, but they're sharp. So now we'll go back into the hole. There, and now it's sitting nice and flat on the floor just by raising that foot up, not very far, about 1/4 of an inch. So now we'll go back to making sure that we have everything centered. So once we have everything centered in the hole, we're going to take our little screws. Carefully open that door. And then these screws are just going to go through these mounting clips, and they're going to go into that mounting plate, that metal mounting plate that the cabinet installer attached. Now, if you want, you can actually cut or you can break off those tabs. What I'll probably do is I'll just take a hammer and lightly tap those and kind of bend them up. Actually, I can do it with my hand. Just bend them up so they go up toward the cabinet or toward the countertop. And there you go. Dishwasher is in the cabinet. It's nice and sturdy in there. And now we can go ahead and get everything hooked up under the sink. Actually, before we do that, we're going to take our trim piece that goes in the front, and these are designed so that they've got kind of cutouts and notches. They go up and fit underneath just right, and there's a wire cut out there. So sometimes you have to fish these in a little bit to get them to the right spot. So this bottom trim piece is designed with slotted holes here. So basically, if you have to adjust the feet way down and raise the dishwasher up, this slotted piece will adjust for that gap and make sure that you don't see an unsightly gap underneath the dishwasher. So, so we've got the main piece in. Now I'm just going to slide this up behind. And then we'll go ahead and reattach those screws to the legs. So now we've got the dishwasher actually mounted inside the cabinet. The last step is to come underneath the sink, and we need to make sure we get the supply line installed here, and then we need to install the drain line. So we'll go ahead and start with the drain line to get it out of the way. So we'll go ahead and start with the drain line. I'm going to use one of these spring clamps. I actually prefer to actually use a regular hose clamp, but this is just what I have with me, and this will work fine. So we'll go ahead and take this spring clamp. Take this spring clamp, we'll squeeze it over our drain line, and then we'll go up to the garbage disposal. One thing, if you have a new garbage disposal, make sure you've taken your knockout plug out. Your dishwasher will not be able to drain. If you don't have a garbage disposal, you can actually connect this to your Okay, so we've got that clamp on there, we've got the drain connected well to the garbage disposal. Now all we need to do is connect the supply line to the supply valve. Okay, we've got that good and tight. We're gonna go ahead and turn on our water. Now, one thing I should note, probably in hindsight, it's actually better to do this trim piece last. That way, when you turn the dishwasher on, you can verify that there aren't any leaks or anything. I've done so many of this particular dishwasher that I'm confident in the installation, but I would say as best practice, put this trim piece on last. That way you can make sure there are no leaks. But we're gonna go ahead and give this a try. And there you go. Dishwasher's running. I can hear that it's filling. I'm gonna cancel it. Because I've got paper and styrofoam and stuff in here that I need to take out, but we'll give that a test run, let it run through, and make sure that everything's operating properly. Well guys, there you go. That's the process of installing a dishwasher. As you can see, it's not too difficult. It's a little bit involved because you do have to deal with plumbing and electrical. Be sure always that you've got your power turned off and you're dealing with anything electrical. That's probably the biggest thing I can stress to you. But let it run, make sure you don't have any leaks, and you're ready to wash dishes. Hopefully you guys found that video helpful. If you did, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and we'll talk to you soon.